Welcome to Mark Medley's Everything Disney.
The words Spanish treasure evoke many images in people's minds, especially gold. However, only 5% of the rare metal shipped from the New World was actually gold, the majority being silver. Mined from as far north as present-day Mexico and as far south as Bolivia, the enslaved Indians hammered the ore from surrounding rock and carried it to the surface where it was beaten into a fine powder for processing. The processed metal was then melted and shaped into different forms. Craftsmen worked silver ore into jewelry, plates, utensils, candlestick holders, sword hilts, and many other items. For bulk transportation, the precious metal was formed into discs, pie wedges, cupcakes, and ingots. New World craftsmen also made coins, gold escudos, silver reales, and copper maravedi. Silver was melted into bars that were cut into strips and then crudely chopped into pieces of the approximate size and weight of the intended coins. These irregularly shaped silver coins were also known as cobs, from the Spanish cabo de barra, which translates as end of the bar. A perfectly struck 8 escudo gold coin is known as the famous gold doubloon. Copper maravedi were used extensively in Europe, but were not favored in the New World. Silver coinage was transported to Spain in cedar chests, similar to the one at the World of Trade display. Each chest contained 3,000 ounces of coins. The manifest of the Capitana of the Flota, which sank behind this site, stated that it carried 1,300 such chests. At this time, silver was the backbone of the European monetary system. Since Spain manufactured nothing that was needed by other nations, she depended solely on her New World colonies to produce precious metal for trade. The loss of any of these shipments not only disrupted Spain's economy, but that of all her European neighbors. Was just about unstoppable, but its drawbacks were its bulky size, heavy weight, and most importantly, its limited range. The cutlass is a short, heavy sword with a curved, single-edged blade. It was carried in a leather scabbard on one side and was the weapon of choice for sailors. The dagger is a short, pointed weapon with 2 sharp edges. Due to its small size, it was easy to hide for use on an unprepared enemy. The dagger was also the perfect size for slipping between the plates in a suit of armor. The sword has a long, double-edged blade for cutting or thrusting, and was a favorite weapon in hand-to-hand combat. The crossbow is a medieval weapon consisting of a bow fixed crosswise on a wooden stock, with grooves on the stock to direct the projectile. Short, heavy arrows, called quarrels or bolts, were shot from the crossbow. The crossbow had a point-blank range of 60 to 70 yards and a maximum range of an amazing 350 yards when elevated at a 45-degree angle. The rate of fire was slow, at 2 quarrels a minute, but a quarrel was shot with such force that it could penetrate a suit of armor. The crossbow was such an effective weapon that the Lateran Council of the Roman Catholic Church of 1139 outlawed its use against Christians,
although it was encouraged for use against heathens. The breastplate is a piece of armor worn to protect the torso during combat. The morion is a crested metal helmet with a curved peak in the front and back, worn by soldiers in the 16th and 17th centuries to protect the head. Gunpowder was introduced to Europe from China in the first half of the 13th century. Once firearms were brought into the battlefield, the suit of armor, also known as a harness, was doomed. Almost from the beginning, firearms fell into two classes: small portable handguns and large crew-operated cannons. The large 12-pound cannon behind you was found in the Atlantic Ocean, behind the McLarty Treasure Museum. When the cannon was found, it was loaded and ready to fire a 12-pound cannonball and a bar shot. Cannons were the best weapons for naval warfare. A bar shot fired from a cannon was used to disable a ship's masts, sails, and rigging. Once a ship lost the ability to move, it could be boarded and captured. The first weapon fired from the shoulder was called a harquebus, derived from the German words meaning hooked gun. The harquebus was hooked to a gun rest, called a horquilla, which supported the gun and transferred some of the recoil. The arquebus is a variation of the harquebus. It is a heavy, portable matchlock gun invented during the 15th century. The matchlock mechanism was developed in 1450 and ignited a gunpowder charge by lighting a fuse when the trigger was pulled. A musket is a smooth-bore shoulder firearm that evolved in 16th century Spain as a larger version of the harquebus. Muskets also used a matchlock mechanism until flintlocks were developed in the late 17th century. Most muskets were muzzle loaders. Early muskets were typically 5.5 feet long and weighed 20 pounds. They were often handled by two men and fired from a horquilla. They fired a 2-ounce ball with little accuracy to a range of about 175 yards. Later muskets were smaller and lighter, and accurate enough to hit a man-sized target at 80 to 100 yards. Muskets were replaced in the 19th century by the rifle. Rifles are breech-loading guns, meaning they are loaded at the rear of the bore or barrel. Most modern guns are breech-loaded. The Ice Indians occupied the coastal Indian River region south of Cape Canaveral to the St. Lucie River, as far as 20 to 30 miles inland. The Ice Indians are thought to be descendants of paleo-hunters who lived in the area 5,000 to 10,000 years ago. During this time, the giant sloth roamed the area. This large vegetarian mammal stood 13 feet tall, weighing 3 to 5 tons. Little is known of the Ice Indians since documentation is scarce. We do know that they were non-agricultural, meaning they were hunters and gatherers, not farmers. They lived off the land. Their diet consisted mainly of food from the surrounding waters, including sea turtles, shellfish, kingfish, bluefish, mullet, drum, and other fish. They also ate bear, raccoon, and native berries, such as palm berries, cocoa plums, and sea grapes. Palm berries were stored for times when they were scarce. The Ice used the same spear and bow and arrow technology as most South Florida Indian tribes. Lacking flint or other stones, the Ice used shells to fashion tools and weapons. The main difference between the Ice Indians and the other South Florida Indians was their chief-centered, youth-oriented culture. The elders of the tribe were not held in high regard. They were virtual slaves to the youth. The Ice did not have a subsistence economy. They had sufficient leisure time to engage in wood carving, basketry, and mat weaving. They also made pendants and beads from shells and fish bones. Regular religious ceremonies were performed, some connected with the phases of the moon. They recognized priesthood and had objects of worship. European influence did little to change the Ice customary way of life. The Ice did not accept Christianity and continued with their own religious beliefs. They did not stop salvaging shipwrecks, even though the Spanish tried to force them to discontinue this practice. The major European influences on the Ice were disease, rum, and the Carolina slave trade, which are thought to have led to their total demise somewhere around 1763.
The following is a fictitious letter, factual in content only. My dearest Teresa de la Castellana, having no idea how I am to transport this letter, I am writing to you only to relieve some of the deep sorrow in my heart. Let me begin by explaining how I came to be in this place of such turmoil. After much delay, due to the late arrival of General Don Juan Esteban de Ubilla's 4 vessels from Veracruz, we finally left Havana on July the 24th in the year of our Lord 1715. The festivals upon leaving were magnificent, my dear betrothed. Brightly colored flags flew, cannons roared, and all wished us Godspeed. The weather was also spectacular, with wispy white clouds dancing in a delightfully pale blue sky. The first day out, all was grandiose, for provisions were plentiful and none dreamed of rationing. At night, we sang and played innocent card games, all forms of gambling being prohibited. I awoke the second day with wild enthusiasm, for we were totally out of the sight of land. I knew I was finally on my way home to you, my darling. My exuberance soon left me, for the winds died and we were left adrift. Then they became erratic. First they blew strong from one quarter, fell off, then gusted from another. Frequently they died altogether. This strange phenomenon lasted for what seemed an eternity, but in reality, but a few days. On our 5th day out, the midday sun had a strange milky haze around it. The ships rolled on long steady swells. I, being not of the sea, listened intently to mere seamen complaining of impending doom, of which I took as fantasy and malcontent. On the 6th day, the wind increased out of the northeast. By midday, the skies were so dark that the order was given to light the stern lanterns. I became increasingly concerned. Sporadic rain squalls battered our vessel. Then came the steady torrent. It weakened our spirit in spite of incessant prayer. A sense of doom enveloped us all. Mountainous waves crashed over the bow and beat us until we were completely out of control. Sometime during the night, we were cast upon the shores of this loathsome place, I'm told some call Florida. Such a beautiful name for such wretchedness. I guess I'm fortunate, for I have survived. The beach is strewn with bodies, many of whom I knew and cared for. My dear, the sights I have seen are untranscribable. Bodies everywhere. Our majestical ships torn and battered to mere rubble. I am at loss for words. I cannot believe God has given us such misfortune. Does he not see our imperilment? Has he not heard our pleas for salvation? Many have died on this dreaded coast, even those that managed somehow to get to shore. I have no idea whether it be from injury or sheer dismay. Nonetheless, we now are a huddled mass upon this abhorrent shore. At night we bury the women and children in the sand, up to their necks as protection against the incessant biting insects. We have little food, being unaware what we can or cannot eat from this land. Water at first was scarce, but we have dug 2 different wells that have alleviated that problem. We managed to salvage 2 longboats, one being sent to El Castillo de San Marcos in St. Augustine, immediately with the worst of us, and of course officers. The second was sent off a few days later with the same destination. We have not heard from them as of yet. Soon after our boats were dispatched, these hideous-looking creatures came out of the surrounding thicket. They speak not of our language, but Admiral Don Francisco Salmon somehow managed to trade some trinkets for food. They taught us how to fish and sun-dry our catch, trap game and smoke it for preservation, and how to prepare sea grapes, palmetto berries, and the hearts of cabbage palms for nourishment. Pardon, my dearest, the camp has come alive with great exuberance. I must take leave to investigate. I have great news to report. A boat has finally arrived from the north bearing provisions, tools, muskets, and Indian laborers, a certain Francisco Melendez Marquez, the royal auditor, being in charge. Sadly enough, they also bring bad tidings. It seems that all of our ships have met the same fate as ours, with the loss of 700 men, women, and children, General Don Juan Esteban de Uvilla among them, and 14 million pesos of His Excellency's treasure. I'm afraid this will cause great impoverishment to our empire, for I feel little will be salvaged, the ships being scattered as they are. Well, my dearest, I must close for now, for Melendez has sent word of sudden departure back to St. Augustine. I hope this letter finds you in good state of body and soul. Please do not worry of me, for I have my undying love for you to spur me on. I will be with you soon. Affectionately yours, Don Gemeli Cesario Fernandez.
This has been a Rockanium production.